Good morning. It is Wednesday, March 11th. Senator Jon Husted recently went on the record to characterize poverty in America as a result of irresponsibility and essentially stupid choices. This is a classic rhetorical framing, the idea that financial struggle is a moral failing rather than a systemic outcome. But in the world of professional political analysis, I don't look at rhetoric. I like to look at the ledger. Now, when a politician who has spent decades in the public trust lectures the working class on responsibility, we have a duty to audit his financial choices. So today, we're going to dissect the business of being Jon Husted. We're looking at a career where responsibility looks less like hard work and more like a series of high-dollar transactions with the very corporations that squeeze the American taxpayer. Now, as of the 2024 election cycle, Husted has amassed a campaign war chest that open secrets and FEC filings place at over $7.3 million total, with more than $3.9 million coming from direct contributions. To understand where that money comes from, we have to look at three specific proof points of how Husted uses his role to build both wealth and influence. And when I mean proof points, I mean controversies. Now let's begin with the most significant public corruption case in Ohio's history, the House Bill 6 scandal. As of this week, March 11, 2026, Jon Husted is scheduled to testify as a defense witness in the trial of former FirstEnergy CEO Chuck Jones and senior VP Michael Dowling in Summit County. Now, FirstEnergy has already admitted in federal court to paying a $4.3 million bribe to secure a $1.3 billion bailout for their aging nuclear plants. In internal text messages and emails released during the discovery phase of the 2024 and 2025 proceedings, FirstEnergy executives repeatedly referred to Jon Husted as their golden boy. Husted met with the men accused of this bribery just 2 days before HB 6 was introduced in 2019. Now, while Husted was facilitating this deal, the legislation he championed resulted in a corruption tax that increased energy rates for Ohio families by an average of $663 per year, according to Common Cause Ohio analysis. Now, Husted's responsibility in this case was to ensure a billion-dollar utility company didn't have to face the free market, and in return, his political ambitions were fueled by at least $3.5 million in dark money funneled through groups like Generation Now. Now, secondarily, Husted often speaks about fraud as a reason to gatekeep social services for the poor. However, his relationship with Centene Corporation, the nation's largest Medicaid-managed care provider, suggests that fraud is only a problem when it doesn't benefit his specific campaign fund. Now, in 2021, Centene paid the state of Ohio $88.3 million to settle allegations that it had overcharged the Department of Medicaid and fraudulently extracted tens of millions of tax papers. This comes from the Ohio Attorney General's office. Despite this documented history of defrauding the state, Husted has accepted at least $75,000 in campaign contributions from Centene. And most damningly, according to an FEC disclosure report, over $29,000 of that money was accepted after the company had already paid their settlement to the state for fraud. When Husted calls the poor irresponsible, he's ignoring the fact that he bankrolled by a corporation that was caught stealing millions of dollars from the very programs he claims to not only protect, but find fraudulent by poor people like you and me. And then finally, we have the Heartland Bank side hustle. While serving as lieutenant governor, a role for which he was paid a taxpayer-funded salary of about $176,000, Husted made the unprecedented move to take a paid position on the board of Heartland Bank. Now, Heartland Bank is an institution directly regulated by the state administration in which Husted serves. Yet Husted and his wife Tina secured this role only after personally purchasing shares in the company, according to the Ohio Capital Journal. Now, Husted fought the disclosure of his compensation for this role for months, only revealing the income after a formal ethics complaint and intense media pressure. This is the definition of using a public role to get rich. He doesn't just serve the public, he uses his public standing to buy into regulated industries and then collect private paychecks from them while still on the state clock regulating them. So let's return to the senator's comments. He says poverty is the result of being stupid and irresponsible, but the data shows a different story. In Husted's Ohio, responsibility is a commodity. If you can afford to pay millions in dollars in dark money, you get a billion-dollar bailout. If you can afford to pay $75,000 in campaign checks, your history of fraud is simply forgiven. And if you're the man in the middle, you get a seat on a bank board and a $7 million war chest. It isn't a lack of intelligence that makes Americans poor. It's a political class that has mastered the art of the legal bribe. Jon Husted isn't an observer of financial irresponsibility. He is an architect of a system where the only stupid choice is being a taxpayer who expects their representative to actually represent them. Jon Husted's ledger is clear. The question is, how much longer are you going to pay for it? And for prosperity, here is a breakdown of 2024 and 2023 campaign contributions to Jon Husted, his top donors, and what industries that money is coming from, just in case there's any other questions you might want to raise.